I was 7 miles the other way in a town called Rock Island. I get a call of a van that went into the river with kids in it. So I get up there. By the time I get there, it's lit up like a Christmas tree. There's divers in the water. Three kids from a baby to an infant to a 6 year old, and they're still in the van and they're down. And the parents are in the back van, and I have to interview them. And I get done interviewing them, and I watch them pull these kids out of the water, put them in the ambulance, and rush them to the hospital. I get done, go to the hospital to watch all three of them. Yep, they died.
Okay, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, my name's Bo Allen.
And Bo, can you tell me a little bit about growing up? And was there anything as you grew up that led you to law enforcement?
Yeah, I actually grew up in Wenatchee, where we are right now.
Okay.
Uh, my dad was in law enforcement. He worked for the Chelan County Sheriff's Office. He started in '64. I was born in '67, so I kind of grew up in it. And I remember probably 4 or 5 years old, maybe growing up in Christmas morning, getting up, and he's at work. So you're sitting by the tree for hours, or it seemed. And I think he would come home around 10 o'clock and we'd do that. And that, you know, you keep growing up and doing that, and they go, yeah, man, that's not something I want to do. So, I went through school here and I tried college. I didn't like school, so I attempted college. I got a job. My dad said, hey, why don't you take tests, give it a shot? Uh, you're not going to be rich, but it's a good career. Probably won't get laid off. And I said, yeah, well, why not? So I took a test for the Washington State Patrol, my first one, because it was available. And I made it through. I think they were doing a background on me. A couple weeks for a background, I was a passenger in a collision, fractured my skull. They show up when I'm rehabbing, and then they just dump me. So
Because you were injured.
because I was injured, yeah, and
Yeah.
I took I couldn't do Chelan County. Chelan County at the time required at least an AA, and I didn't have that, but Douglas County didn't. So I took their test, thinking, I don't know anything about this at all. So you take a test, and the next thing you know, they call me several months later, and they offer me a job. And now you're thinking, oh God, what did I do?
So, Bo, for the audience, give us an idea where Douglas County is. How big is it? How much area eventually do you end up covering?
Douglas County's it's unique. Well, I guess it's unique in the fact that the Columbia River separates Chelan and Douglas County. So basically, we're one big area. However, Douglas County is about 1,800 square miles, and I think the population now is around 40,000. Has one police department, which is the East Wenatchee PD. So everything outside of East Wenatchee, which I think when I started was about 5,000 people, maybe. Everything else was ours
Okay.
as deputies. So
And so we're in Eastern Washington,
we're Central Washington,
Central Washington.
Eastern, yeah,
Okay.
right in the middle of the state.
Okay. All right. And if I were to ask you or ask people that were in high school with you that what they thought that you would become a cop, what do you think they would say?
Absolutely not.
Okay, and why not?
Uh, I kind of was. I was extremely shy, but I I would use comedy to combat that. So smartass was a label that I got quite a bit because, once you get comfortable, you just start and making people laugh. You just go.
Right.
So, and I'm certainly wasn't a public speaker.
Mm-hmm.
I was terrified in the academy at sometimes when you had to give your we had to do a biography. I think that we talked about ourselves in the beginning, and we were the first double class in the academy. We had like 60 people in our class. Most of them were 25, 30. And I remember, I think they had to shut me down because once I start going, they said, okay.
So, Bo, what year do you end up going to the academy?
I went to the academy. It's funny. I think I remember the dates. I think my first day was January 7th, 1991.
Okay.
And
And then explain to me, because I've obviously talked to some people in Idaho and I've talked to a little bit of people in Seattle area. Where do you do your academy? Where's the academy? How long does it last? And what does it entail?
the academy for us at that time was in Burien. Of course, Spokane had their own academy, and our department would pick whatever one had an opening.
Okay.
Spokane had less. Seattle at the time, or Burien at the time, had 3 classes going one after another each month. So I was in that one. And it pretty much from day one, you do your physical stuff. You learn all about your criminal procedures, your traffic, your law, your hands-on with the criminal law, and just everything in 11 and a half weeks they can pack into you.
And how old were you?
23.
Okay, so 23. How was that for you?
Eye-opening.
Okay.
But
Was Burien, I guess, described as militaristic, or how would you describe the
pseudo-militaristic. They tried, but we all knew we were volunteers, and it was, after a while, it got kind of enjoyable because we knew what they were trying to do, but it wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
I mean, they would go after some people that they thought maybe should go find something else to do.
Okay.
And one of them turned out to be a friend of mine, and he soldiered on and made it through and ended up retiring.
Oh.
At a department.
Okay.
In fact, I don't know if I can say too much. If he in the academy, his department dissolved and was absorbed by a different agency. It's like, crap, what do I do now? But they kept him.
Oh.
So when he graduated, I believe he went to work for that agency because they just took him. It was a small couple-man department, I believe.
How long was the academy for you?
11 and a half weeks.
Okay. So you get out. Are you still 23 or 24 at that?
Let's see. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I graduated a day before my birthday, which is probably the best birthday present at that time I'd ever had.
Okay. So you get out and you start immediately on patrol.
I came back. In fact, when I was gone, new cars rolled in. The new patrol cars had come in, or 2 of them came in, and the senior guys used to be able to pick the new cars, and we get the hand-me-downs. I thought I had an old one, but this 1991 Chevy Caprice came in, and I know what it looks like, and I got it because nobody wanted that ugly thing. So that was my first car. My shift was 20 to 04.
Okay.
At 02, the last guy went home but me. So I was on duty for 2 hours by myself. I came back from the academy and they said, here are your keys, you're going to work at this time. There was no FTO program.
Well, and just for the audience, because most of them aren't going to know military time, what are the time?
8 p.m. to 4 a.m.
Got it. Okay. Perfect.
We didn't have a field training officer, which now they have extensive weeks with officers to learn the job. I got, here you go. which we all did back then.
Right.
So I can recall at 2 o'clock when that last guy went off, I'm going, oh, wow. If the, hits the fan, how am I going to do? Natural. You're brand new, first few months. I mean, and then you just get used to it.
And so for Douglas County Sheriff at the time, how many patrol officers do you have?
I think at that time, we probably had around 25 commissioned.
Okay.
That includes the administration.
Okay.
The sheriff, undersheriff, chief criminal deputy, sergeants, detectives, everybody.
So I'm assuming you're not rolling around in two-man cars.
Absolutely not. We were all by ourselves. As a matter of fact, the county's divided into 3 sections. You have the South, the Waterville, and North. North had their own detachment. So they had a sergeant and a couple of deputies that would work the north end of the county, Bridgeport, north end of the county. And then the South, which I was from, would cover Waterville and the East Wenatchee area. So we had 2. Waterville guy was always alone. And it was a big area. It wasn't very populous, but it took a long time to get to where you needed to go sometimes.
Yeah, so that was my question for you. If you're on a single-man patrol car, how far was your nearest backup?
If you're in the town of Waterville, he's in East Wenatchee, about 30 miles. But if you're out in the boondoolies, that could be 60 miles, or depending on where you were, it could be a long time. And there were spots up in those areas where we had no communication, even with our dispatchers, because of the terrain, the canyons, the geography of the place. So you knew where you needed to be or where you were when you.
So significant amount of time for somebody to get to you.
Yes.
Did that ever worry you? And let me ask you this: did that ever worry you? And was there ever a time where you had an incident where you're like, "Oh crap"?
No, it didn't worry me because I couldn't let it worry me. I had to be able to, if it's something, yes, and I got an example. Yeah, you either had to deal with it or back off. If it's something I can't take care of, my ego's not big enough to have to say, "Look at me, my badge is going to protect me." Hell no. So yeah, in particular, we had a detective that happened to be in Waterville, is the county seat of my county. It's 27 miles from East Wenatchee, where the populace is. So it's a courthouse, few businesses, wheat farmers, and I think there's a couple thousand people that live there. And I had a call, and it's an area called Rimrock Meadows. Rimrock Meadows is probably, trying to think of mile markers here, 35, 40 miles from Waterville. And it is a area down in a coulee. So you have all your basalt, and it's basically it's not a resort. People own their houses or trailers or whatever. They had a swimming pool and an office. Radio was very difficult down there. So I had, and it was free range. So free range is where your cattle have the right of way to cross the roads and all that stuff. So one gentleman was sick of his neighbor's cows coming to eat in his garden. And I don't know how many times it happened, but at one time, the owner of the poor cow was home, and this guy's dragging the cow behind his car, shot and killed him because he was in his garden. So it's like, okay, well, so one of our detectives happened to be in court that day. And he came down, he was going back, and I says, "Hey, I'm going out to Rimrock. You mind tagging along just because there's gunplay involved?" And I don't want to say the people who lived out there were a little off, but some of them, that's why they live off the grid,
Right.
So we get out there, and it was a camper, and we exited my vehicle, and he comes out, he's cradling a rifle. And I said, okay, well, I don't have any communications with our dispatch either. I said, well, I'm here because of the cow. And he said, don't come any closer. I said, okay. So we talked about it. He basically told me that, yeah, he shot it, whatever. So I said, okay, well, we'll leave. So we talked about it. They said, yeah, well, there's no reason for us to go after him because something bad's going to happen. So we rallied and went back down. And we got to talking to our chief criminal deputy, who at the time was our SWAT team leader, SRT leader. And he says, yeah, we're going to do a deployment on it. It was a felony malicious mischief second for a cow. All the guy had to do is say, yeah. But we arrive, all 11 of us surround the place. He ain't coming out. We now know he's in there with his girlfriend and her child. And this is one of those campers that fit on the back of a pickup, but it was not, it was freestanding. So there was a bluff behind it where the guys were tossing rocks on it to try to get him to come out, and he wouldn't come out. So we knew he was armed. We eventually, hours later, deployed gas, broke windows and deployed gas. And the woman and her son came out the top window, and we had to extract them, not knowing where he was and if he wants to take shots at us. We get them out, and we say, okay, where is he? She goes, oh, he shot himself.
Oh.
And we thought, okay, whatever. And excuse me, sorry about this. And so we put a team together, breach the back door, pull the door open, and he's sitting like this with his rifle in his mouth. And there's about that much water on the floor, just bloody. And now we're choking. So okay, who's going to go grab him? So we pull him out, and what he had done was he had shot himself in the temple, I believe, and didn't kill him. So he was going in the mouth, and that's where he lost consciousness. So we started working on him. Helicopter came in.
So he's still alive?
He's still alive. He died in the operating room. And it's like, for a cow that he shot. I thought, well, then you kind of second guess yourself on why this went that way. But
well, not only that, why would the woman stay in there?
We don't know if he made her stay, or we don't know that. She never, I mean, she was by his side the whole time.
Oh, so he probably didn't shoot himself until you guys...
He shot himself when we were there. Because we heard what we thought might have been some kind of a shot, but then we were lobbing rocks on his camper too. So we didn't believe him when she said, oh, he shot himself.
Yeah, but then once it was all done and he did shoot himself, why would the woman stay in there? I mean, I'm assuming there were several minutes before you guys actually made entry.
Well, we got her out before we made entry because yeah, it's a good question.
Huh. Okay. So again, and maybe this was your example, but so no worry because you couldn't really think about it because it's like, oh my gosh, I'm out here by myself anyway.
Yeah.
And so was there? I mean, besides that, was there ever a time where you're like, yeah, this is bad. I'm out here by myself and I'm going to need backup?
Has to be. There's been so many that I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if I think of some, I'll come back.
Okay.
I've run into some pretty pretty upset folks out there in the middle of nowhere.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so before we started, we chatted a little bit, and I'm obviously being in a small department, you kind of had to be, jack of all trades,
Correct.
right? So give me some examples of different things that you did in your department.
Well, the first thing I did when I started, we had one EVOC instructor. EVOC is an emergency vehicle operation course. It instructs our people how to drive in the placement course or slow course and a speed course to be able to not wreck your car. And I was 26, I believe, and our instructor said, go to school. I said, good. Well, my dad was an EVOC instructor. He taught me to drive.
Mm.
And it wasn't fun a lot of the times. So I was an EVOC instructor, and I held that from 1994 until I retired. And then we kept adding more guys. So I did a little less in the end and got to choose pretty much what I wanted to do. And then from there, I think I was a member of a crime scene team. Crime scene team, where there's a group of guys on major incidents. We'll go out there and process the scene, and we each had our different specialties, I guess. I got saddled a lot with casting, so we'd cast tires, footprints, and then from there I was a range instructor, firearms instructor. I'm missing some. What else did I do?
Well, one thing I thought was interesting is we talked about if you had ever been in homicide, and you went, everybody was in homicide.
Yeah, that's right. Because if at the time we had, well, we had a multi-agency drug task force, which consisted of guys from both counties, both cities, and the state patrol. So I think there was 5 of us in this. I did that for 2.5 years. Had a good time. Then I went back to my department as a low-level drug and the property crime detective. But if we had a major homicide, then we were all there investigating, and then we'd just dole out whatever we but not only was we doing the detective work on the homicide, but we were also doing the crime scene. A lot of us were part of the crime scene team as well. And then we would have 2 of the dicks that weren't probably detectives. Sorry, I don't know what would do the interviews, mostly for victim witness interviews.
Okay. What was a typical call that you would have either when you were on patrol? So I guess 2-part question. When you were on patrol, what was a typical call that you had, if there was? And then once you started working narcotics or detectives back at your own shop, what was the typical call in Douglas County at the time?
For patrol, it was family issues, family fights, thefts, frauds, a lot of phone scam fraud stuff that you felt so bad for these people because they got bilked out of so much money, and they're offshore. There's nothing we could do about any of that, and you felt so helpless because you couldn't help them.
Yeah.
And they came to you for help, and you say, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And then they are not real pleased with you because you didn't help them.
Right.
Those are terrible. Those don't make you feel good.
Yeah.
So.
And how about as a detective?
The detectives, I think probably, I would say 70 to 80% were sex crimes.
Really?
It was.
So like what kind? Are we talking rape? Are we talking child?
Well, a lot of child stuff.
Okay.
It's yeah.
And how was that? I mean, well, let me ask you this: when you start working those types of crimes, how old are you?
Well, I didn't.
Oh, you
work
did.
The sex crimes.
Oh, okay.
Mine were property crimes.
Okay.
And generally marijuana and low level stuff. But if it got big enough, then I would kick it to the task force and let them do it. you had to be especially trained to do the sex crimes, and I was just too busy to ever want to be specially trained to interview
Yeah.
anybody for a sex crime. So I was happy that I
Right.
I didn't do that. So
Was there any during your career? I mean, obviously, law enforcement isn't for everyone. Was there any time during your career that people kind of came in and out of the department that would maybe show up for a little bit and they're like, yeah, this isn't for you, and they'd either be let go or quit themselves or
yes,
and what was if you can remember, what was a typical reason why those people wouldn't end up doing a career in law enforcement?
I think a lot of it when you're looking at this job, you want to drive fast, shoot guns, and that's not it. So once the stressful stuff hits, there are I'm sure incidents that turned people that said, "Yeah, I'm going to go be a firefighter," or not disparaging firefighters, mind you. We'll do that later. um, yes, we had one that made a career change and became a firefighter, I believe.
Okay.
And then there are guys that just were over their skis because it was a fun job, or they wanted to be heavy-handed. And I've witnessed some of the heavy-handedness of guys that really didn't belong, and it makes you sick
Yeah.
because it looks bad on, especially if I'm there and see it.
Right.
If I don't act, I'm guilty too. But you say, dude, you can't. It's back away. I mean,
Yeah.
we
So
talk about a brotherhood, but I'm not going down with you. And if I think you're doing wrong, I'm going to call you out on it,
yeah.
and I'm going to deal with it because I still have to deal with these folks, and you're not doing them right.
Right.
So
So those guys got basically bounced out then.
they did, but once you make it through probation, it's difficult because civil service is such a big protector of, I wouldn't say bad behavior, but it takes a lot to get fired unless it's something heinous.
But I would imagine exactly what you're saying is really important, especially in a small department. You have to treat people well because you're going to deal with them again.
You're going to deal with them again, and then you're going to deal with their families. And if you weren't respectful to them, it wasn't a fun place to be around.
Right.
I mean, and we all know it's hard to be nice to somebody that's calling you every name in the book,
Yeah.
but you got to go in knowing that's going to happen, and you just got to let it bounce off of you.
Yeah. So how did you develop that skill as you
Oh, I think so. I think
on
I
the
think I think when I was young and somebody called me something, I would be pissed and kind of. But as a matter of fact, we had a guy that was hired rather late in his. Well, he's about 2 months older than me, and we were in our late 30s. So I'd been there 17, 13, 14, 15 years, and he's brand new. And we went to a particular call where it was a husband and wife, and he had like four rigs. She wanted to take one. He says no, so he's letting her out of tire so she can't take him. So we knew him. I knew him. So we get there, and he's the primary on the call, so I was just there as a secondary. And I think I spoke to her, and he took the other guy. And there's nothing we can do. It's a civil issue. So there's nothing we can do for you. I apologize. The next thing you know, he's got him because he pissed him off, and he's spinning around, and he's got him up against the car. And I said, "Whoa!" I said, "Hey, go talk to her." And I talked to him. And I said, "Just settle down there." And we got through it, and we roadsided after that. And he says, "How in the hell did you not want to tear him apart?" I said, "Well, maybe I did." And it's just time on the department because I might have done that when I was in my early 20s as well. But you can't let that stuff eat you up, because what you did was a violation of a lot of things. So he never complained. We discussed it, and then it was taken care of. But that could have been a career ender right there, or the start of the career ender. He ended up leaving after about 4 years because he couldn't work in the gray. What was it? Work in the gray. He was a black and white guy.
Yeah.
And he just, and that eats a lot of people up too, that everything's so black and white. They cannot work in that gray area because nothing in law enforcement is black and white for the most part. So, and if you can't do that, you're in trouble.
Yeah, and that's interesting because obviously you learned how to deal with people, and this doesn't, we'll get back to the gray area thing in a second, but you learned to deal with people over time. But I would have thought if he was a little bit older and a little bit more mature, he might have reacted in a different way. But essentially, it's like, no, you have to realize it's just time on the job dealing with people.
Well, like put it in perspective. Say if you have a 23-year-old, a kid that's 23 has been acting until he's 37. He's going to act better as an actor than if you take a 37-year-old off the road and say, okay, act.
Right.
So I think you have to learn and grow.
Right.
And some people can't do it.
Talking a little bit about the gray area that you were just mentioning, and if you can think of an example of this, great, and if not, I'll cut it out. But can you give an example of the gray? Because I think there's a lot of gray, and it's not so black and white once you get out there and start dealing with people. And I think most people in the public don't realize that.
Oh, there are policies and procedures that I can give you an example of what, kind of, and this is the only one I can think of.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
We were dealing with a mental health. I think he was bipolar. He might have been something else, but then he would smoke a lot of weed. And the guy was just he was built. I mean, he was a wrestler at the time. He was in his 30s, I think, but the guy was but he would go off, go into his manic stuff, hole up in his house, do something stupid. And this particular time, he had assaulted his dad. He was living on their orchard in a farmhouse, and so several times. The first time I could, the folks from mental health wanted to do an in-house visit with him, and every time they did that, they would take one of us with them. So the first time I had met him, they wanted to do an involuntary on him. They couldn't do it. I could if I thought he was a danger to himself. But I think they might have had, I don't think they had an order, but if I thought he was a danger to himself, and I coaxed him in. I sat down with him in the middle of the rocks and coaxed him into going for a ride with me just to get whatever I needed to do.
Yeah.
And it worked. Well, then every time he would go manic, he'd want me. Or my department knew that I was successful once, so guess what? About the fourth time, I wasn't working. The Waterville deputy got that call. I went up as backup. The Waterville deputy was new. He was working with, I think, an FTO. And when we got there, I went and talked to him, basically got him out, and the kid wants to treat it like he's a criminal. And he's the one that he assaulted his dad. So we had PC to arrest him for the assault for DV.
Yeah.
And he's locked himself in the house. I finally got him convinced to come out. I walked him over. I put him in the back seat of my car. He doesn't know he's under arrest this time. And I shut the door. Our procedures are to say that if you take anybody into custody, they're handcuffed. He says, and this kid's very black and white by the book. He's looking at policy as we're standing there and says, well, how come you didn't handcuff him? And I said, and I looked at his FTO and I said, you deal with him. I'm not going to deal with this right now. We'll discuss this later. We're leaving. So we took him to the hospital and got him checked out. And then I finally said, look, this is why I didn't do it. If I'd have told him, I got him to come out voluntarily for mental health evaluation. If I'd have told him he was under arrest for assaulting his dad, what do you think would have happened? We would have had to fight him. One of us is going to get hurt. So that's why I didn't do it.
Yeah.
And eventually I said, so don't tell him he's under arrest when we're in the hospital. So we're in the room. I leave, I come back, and he looks at me and he says, Mr. Allen, am I really under arrest? And I went, oh, who told him? The nurse did. Nurse says, yeah, he's good to go to the jail. So I said, yeah. I said, yeah, you kind of had a row with your dad. We're going to go. And he was okay. But is that gray enough for you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a perfect example. Perfect example. So I want to get back to something you said earlier, which is you were basically in high school kind of a class clown. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think that humor helped you in your career?
It did, but sometimes it backfired.
Okay.
And that's not necessarily with folks. It could have been maybe in a class.
Okay.
But thank God they didn't give push-ups. During the academy, because I knew when I couldn't say something.
Yeah.
Because we were alphabetically. So we were in, if you look at like an orchestra room is what we were in an old high school. Mm-hmm. So it was a semicircle. We were alphabetical. So I was third row front. And I had 50 some people around and behind me. I did not open my mouth unless asked until we were 3 weeks to go, because I was not drawing attention to myself. And once we got through, I think the mock scenes, that's when you knew you were at the finish line, because the rest was just, that's when one of the guys from King County, always on a Friday, any more questions, we'll let you go. That came up, I turned and I said, if you raise your hand, I'm going to come up there.
Okay, but I guess I was focusing more on your humor in dealing with people out in the public. Do you think that helped you?
Yes.
Okay.
Because it lightened the situation quite a bit, lightened the mood. I mean, if you could get the right situation and say the right thing, it lessens some of the stress, some of what was happening. And if you can make somebody cry, giggle a little bit, it eases it for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, you're not such a hard ass at every single thing, and so
even when you aren't a hard ass, you're there because if it's a traumatic incident for them, and you can, they just wrap their car around a pole, and you just find something to say, could have been worse, or make some snide comment. But there was a line there that sometimes you could step over.
We talked about this before, and I'm hoping you can elaborate a little bit on it, because I certainly didn't know anything about this case.
Uh-oh.
But it was the serial killer thing you talked about.
Yeah.
And what was he called? The werewolf?
I didn't realize that until later. I think that was just some moniker they gave him.
Okay.
They gave him a Wikipedia page, the Werewolf Slasher, we could look it up right now.
Yeah, but I just find it interesting that we're in such a small community that you're dealing with a serial killer.
Yeah.
Hey, can you talk a little bit about what that case all was about?
Yeah, we it was in 1995, April of 95. And I don't know if you told you, it happened the same day or within a day or two of the Timothy McVeigh bombing in
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma City, the
Yeah.
Murrah building. So I had worked a shift. I worked a 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. shift, kind of a swing shift, and I had a Les Schwab employee riding with me because we had just finished EVOC like a week before, and they brought up a bunch of different tires and used my car to throw all these tires on. So he said, I'd love to go for a ride. So they allowed him to ride with me. So we're tooling around. And 11 o'clock, I let him go. I go home. My phone rings, wakes me up, and said, "We need you." They said, "We got a double homicide, and it's this location." I get up, I get there, and I went, "Oh, you got to be kidding me." I had driven by that house probably at 10:15. Turns out that the killer was probably across the street, the parking lot of the school, and I didn't see it. So I'm carrying that with me a little bit. And he didn't know it was a mother and a daughter. They were viciously murdered. And if I remember, he had some kind of a run-in with the mother at a bar. She didn't know him, but she in it. Well, come to find out, this guy was a suspect in another murder of his girlfriend's daughter in Okanagan County, a neighboring county. And he moved down here, and they didn't let us know that he was here,
Mm.
which wasn't the greatest thing that we found out. But there are incidents before that that came in that we put together once we had arrested him. Um, One was a knock on the door at a house. People go to the door, open it, nobody's there. Back door knocks. They go to the back door, nobody's there. We're pretty sure that was him. He lived down the street. And something I think spooked him, so he didn't finish that, which we were lucky for. Um, the incident at Safeway, if you recall that one,
Mm-hmm.
he was flashing a woman that came out of a grocery store, and she said, "Oh, I don't think so." Got in her car and chased him down. I believe he was on a motorcycle, and another car failed to yield to him and knocked him over. So he got arrested for that. So we're putting all these things together after the fact, going, "Wow, if we could have just hindsight being 2020, we could have stopped it had we known."
Yeah.
You know,
What
was stuff.
you remember what his name was?
It was Jack Spillman. I'll never forget it.
Okay, so for the audience, if you look up the photo of Jack Spielman, you will he looks like a kid, just a kid, and
He
he
was in his 20s.
yeah, and how many people did he how many people did he get convicted of, and how many people do they think he killed?
We know. I don't know what happened with you. I think they wrapped them all together. If
Okay.
three,
Yeah,
but he wasn't going to stop.
right.
Um,
And then so he got this moniker of like the werewolf slasher or something or
yeah,
else. But can you talk a little bit about why that was when you end up searching?
I believe when we did a search warrant on his house, I was the lucky deputy that got his bedroom to search because others were doing other parts of the house, and the state patrol uh, team was doing their uh, uh, fingerprinting and all that stuff. And it was an eerie feeling. I've never been that creeped out in a room, knowing that he's not there, just from the stuff that I found. Everything was about werewolves or full moons and all that type of stuff. And there was some creepy stuff in there that I just keep to myself, I think.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so coming to the end here, and I always like to ask these questions. What did being in law enforcement ever have an effect on your family?
Yes,
Okay, in what
my
way?
immediate family.
Yeah, I mean, in what way?
Well, my wife would get upset with me because I never told her anything
Okay, and why not?
because she didn't need to know anything.
Okay,
She didn't need to sit here and worry. She probably worried enough, but she didn't need to know if I came out and said, "Oh, dude, this guy pointed a gun at me," which happened early on.
mm,
But she'd get mad at me because my friends wouldn't find out somehow, and their wives would talk to her about these things. She goes, "We didn't tell me that." I said, "You're right." So she always wanted a scanner. I said, "Hell no. You're not going to get a police scanner
right.
because I am not." Well, then it ended up getting him on the phone at the end of the career, and there's nothing I could do about that. But we made it
Okay. How about how about your kids? Anything?
through. I don't think so. I was like it affected me, and I don't know if we're going to get to that, but I can tell you the one time that it affected me, and then from that point on, I think it kind of numbed me from that, and that was early on. That would have been about 1994, because my
Okay, so let's talk about that in just a second. But
okay,
let me just ask you this. So most cops, law enforcement people that I talk to talk about just how the job affected things with kids because they're missing birthdays. They're doing all that stuff. But is that, I mean, was that the case for you in being in a small department, or you were able to kind of mitigate that stuff because you were in a small department?
I missed my daughter's 18th birthday because a body was found about 20 feet from a different county's jurisdiction, and I was at that all night. So yeah, I missed birthdays several times.
Okay.
I
Okay.
missed holidays. Of course, we all missed holidays, but I had to. My in-laws live in the jurisdiction I work, so we'd have Christmas. So I go up there and on duty and have dinner, hang out, or whatever. But it was always nice to be working because then I could leave if I needed to. But I got a collision at a new intersection, new road put in, a collision. And I got to the collision, and it was the older couple that ran the stop sign because the street was new and the stop sign was new. And I said, I got to write you a ticket, but I'm not going to write it today because it's Christmas. I'm going to mail it to you. I hope that it's a little bit easier to digest.
How did they take that?
I understood.
Yeah. Okay. So getting back to what you were just talking about, and this is kind of how did the job affect you? What happened in '94 that kind of numbed you
Yeah,
and
I
kind of,
was I was working what at that time was our graveyard. So I came on at 11 p.m. And there's a park, RV park, about probably 33 miles from East Wenatchee. I was 7 miles the other way in a town called Rock Island. I get a call of a van that went into the river with kids in it. So I get up there. By the time I get there, it's lit up like a Christmas tree. There's divers in the water. Three kids, from a baby to an infant to a 6 year old, and they're still in the van and they're down. And the parents are in the back van, and I have to interview them. And I get done interviewing them, and I watch them pull these kids out of the water, put them in the ambulance, and rush them to the hospital. I get done, go to the hospital to watch all three of them. Yep, they died.
yeah.
I got a 2 year old at home. So I finished. I went home and I held her. My wife says, "What's wrong?" That's when you have to tell her.
Yeah.
So I think once you get through that, I don't think there's anything that can affect me now.
So, Bo, I'm interested. I mean, that happens in 94. That happened years and years ago, and it obviously still has an emotional effect on you. Did you ever, um, a lot of guys are affected differently. How did your department handle traumatic stress or events like that? Did you guys ever have, EAP or
We
counseling or anything like that?
we knew at the time that it was available, but nobody ever recommended it.
Mm-hmm.
Said you're going, which maybe they need to, and they might now. It might happen now.
Mm-hmm.
So
Did you ever, during your career, I mean, not necessarily you, but maybe you or others, did you ever think, man, maybe that guy should see some counselor? Maybe,
absolutely,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So it just wasn't, was it more of a thing back then of, hey, we're just macho law enforcement, we're not gonna go?
I think it was more of a ignorance,
Okay.
not knowing, because of course guys at the time that ran the department were guys from the 60s and 70s. They didn't do any of that,
Right.
you know. But I had I worked with a guy who was involved in an incident where a collision that where somebody was killed, and that affected him his whole career. And I was on a light duty because I'd injured my back at a burglary, new construction, taking pictures, backed up, stepped off a bunch of stairs where the railing hadn't been up yet, and had a lower back issue. I had just come back, and they wanted me to kind of go through an FTO for a week just to make sure that I was. I mean, it'd been several months.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, this guy was coming back off of his uh, time off for his injuries or whatever he had gone through. And I said to my sergeant, I said, "Hey, why don't you let me ride with him so he doesn't have to do it alone? He's working the area where the collision happened. If he gets out there and he's alone, just let me be with him." And he did, and he appreciated it. And we actually went out there and drove the first time he'd been there since. I think that was better than just saying, "Here you go back to work," and you work in the same area this incident occurred.
Right.
And but he was offered and used a lot of counseling, so that was how it evolved from. And that was probably 10, 15 years later. So that's where the counseling is evolved, had evolved, and we've all become more aware that you know we're not rocks.
Right. Right.
We have feelings.
So hindsight being 2020, I'm curious, Bo, because everybody has a different philosophy in terms of talking to their spouse. Knowing what you know now, would you have maybe opened up a little bit more about her? Or no, it didn't have anything to do with kind of you talking it out. You just didn't want your wife to worry about you.
Right. Um, I've allowed her several times to do ride-alongs because we could do that, just so she could be a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So then she could see what happens, and then I would, and then if she saw something that she thought was bad that I wouldn't have, she would. I would hope that she'd say, "Well, I ain't gonna ask anymore," and I would hope to think that helped. And there was a particular incident. We were on a highway, and she loved the radar button to push the button to watch the numbers. So every car was coming at us, and every car she'd hit this button. We're on a highway. We're doing probably 65, and I pulled over to the side, And I turned on the car. She goes, "What are you doing? The car's only doing 47." I said, "Yeah, but he was an hour lane." She goes, "Oh, DUI." So that was a good one.
I don't think I could have my wife in the car with me.
She could tell you the story because he was his English was very very little, and of course I think she'd tell you that she remembers that I asked him how much he had to drink. She's in his response was, "I didn't have any cerveza." So
Okay.
that didn't go to trial.
Okay. So, Bo, 1990 to 2020, that was your career.
Yes, sir.
So, in that time, if you can think back to when you started to when you retired, or even till now, did being in law enforcement affect the way that you see people?
Absolutely.
How?
I'm suspect of everybody until they prove me otherwise. Because that's uh, what's the word I'm looking for? A safety, or because of course we've seen all these people that can uh, sell ice to an Eskimo, and you think, let's learn a little bit more about him. So it's a guard, but it's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's a protection thing.
All right.
So,
But you think over the time of you being in law enforcement has made that wariness go up?
oh yeah, because before you just go, oh hey, that seemed pretty cool. You go, oh, something's wrong with this guy, and it happens, and you know it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know the back in the car in everywhere. Always back the car and never pulling forward. Never sit with your back to the door. That's just creeps me out.
Would you have any advice if a young person was looking at this video, looks at your career, listens to you tell some stories, if they were thinking about going into law enforcement, what advice would you give them?
You got to be prepared, study, talk to everybody. The guys who have experience, there's really nothing better than experience. And when you talk to these guys, you can glean so much stuff out of guys, whether it be good or bad. I had guys that were brand new that my sergeant would have ride with me. First of all, because I didn't mind it, because a lot of guys don't like new people riding with them. But it gave me a chance to say, hey, this is what they're looking for. This is what you need to do or should do. I don't know it all, but you maybe learn some things from me, but listen to everybody and develop your own way to go.
Yeah.
Uh, I had a young gal who's still with the department. I went to, you might have to edit this one, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Because I was short. I was probably 3 months out. And a woman calls her car been just vandalized. And we all knew her boyfriend did it. So I go to where she says he is, and I ask for this guy. Guy answers the door, cocky. I says, "Is so-and-so here? Why do you need him?" I said, "I can't talk to you about it. I need to talk to him." "Well, I'll just give him the message." I said, "Is he here? I can't talk to him." "I don't know. Is he here?" "I don't know." I said, "Okay." And I said, "You're an asshole." And she's standing right there. And I turned around, I get in the car, and I said, "Don't do that for another 20 years." I said, "Because if I get in trouble right now, I'm going to ride this thing out." But you just learn something. You learn what not to do. I
Well,
shouldn't have done that.
yeah, and you probably learned something every day when you were out on the street.
Absolutely.
Bo.
I had a great time. It was a good career. It afforded me to do so many things that I never would have done without it, and I survived it.
Right.
So,
Thank you very much for the interview.
my pleasure.
Appreciate it.